Hello everyone, welcome to another live stream. It's been a little while since I've done one of these. Got my arms out today so you can see all of the weird hairs I've got on my sides, but yeah, I do one Sunday a month-ish. Okay, that's not too bad. That's kind of similar to Abby's work. She does one Saturday a month. But yeah, it's good to see you. Well, good to see you in chat anyway. Today we are going to be carrying on with reading the Bible. Hence the title of the stream. But we're going to be picking up where we left off in Genesis 12. I figured might as well just jump straight into it. It's absolutely gorgeous weather outside, by the way. I have no idea what it's like for you. I'm sorry if you can hear police sirens because we've got the windows open and it's really hot. So hopefully that wasn't too loud for you guys. But yeah, we're going to carry on where we left off. Genesis 12. The call of Abram. Okay. So, the Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will now show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt." Music is kind of loud. Sorry, bro. I'll turn that down. Is that any better? Hopefully that's okay. Super muggy here, thunderstorms this morning, music's kind of like, yep. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Should be a little bit more balanced now. Let me know if it's not. Shall I read that part of the chapter again, or are we thinking we good? Give it another go, I'll let you know. Cool. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go into the land that I will now show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those pardon me. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on the earth will be blessed through you." I'm assuming it's okay, seeing as no one said anything yet. So I'm going to carry on. So, Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and his wealth, his livestock, and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran, and headed for the land of Canaan. Wouldn't hate it a bit quieter, but I can hear you. Yep. Let me take it down another couple of notches. Hopefully that's okay. It's strange. I don't think I get quite the same mix out of my headphones as I do that's actually going out. But there we go. Where was I? His livestock and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran, and headed for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, Abram travelled through the land as far as Shechem, where there he set up a camp beside the oak of Moreh, or Moreh, don't know how you pronounce it, but at that time the area was inhabited by Canaanites. You can probably hear your voice louder though, because it's your head. It makes sense. Yeah. So he set up a camp beside the oak of Moreh. At that time, the area was inhabited by Canaanites. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I will give this land to your descendants." And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord who had appeared to him. After that, Abram travelled south and set up a camp in the hill country with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord. Then Abram continued traveling south by stages toward the Negev. So I think this is probably like the most self-explanatory passage of scripture that we've had so far in Genesis, I want to say. Like, you know, it's pretty straightforward. It's just story, mostly. It's just telling you about Abram, where he comes from, where God has told him to go, and all that stuff. So, you know, it's pretty simple. I do love what it says in the first couple of verses, though. In verse 2, I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on the earth will be blessed through you. And like, we're seeing the fulfillment of those promises in today's world, right? In that, hopefully, as Christians, we should be the fulfillment of that promise, right? All families on earth will be blessed through you. Like, every kind action that we take, every time that we consider somebody else above ourselves, we are being that blessing that God talks about in this passage, which I just think is pretty neat. Anyway, we shall move on. So, verse 10. Abram and Sarai in Egypt. At that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abram to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. All the nations will be blessed through you, Gentiles and Jews, God's plan from the start. Absolutely. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, "Look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife. Let's kill him, and then we can have her.' So please tell them that you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you." And sure enough, when Abram arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarai's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarai was taken into his palace. Then Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. But the Lord sent terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and accused him sharply. "What have you done to me?" he demanded. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' and allow me to take her as my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and get out of here." Pharaoh ordered some of his men to escort them, and he sent Abram out of the country, along with his wife and all of his possessions. So, immediately here, you know, in literally the opening chapter in which we are introduced to Abram, he's already making mistakes, right? And from his point of view, this kind of makes sense, right? Because he's going into a foreign land. He doesn't know how well they're going to be treated. He's scared for his own life. And so he lies about who his wife is. And it's bad, right? Like, it's just bad. I mean, it's not a particularly good way to treat your wife, for one. And secondly, it's deceitful, like you're lying to people. And yeah, like, I don't really know what else to say about this passage, but yeah, it's an interesting passage, right? It's a bit of a confusing one. But it kind of shows, I think this story in particular shows how vulnerable we are to making mistakes, and also trusting in our own strength and our own ideas over the promises of God, right? So we do that all the time. I do that all the time. I wish I didn't, but I do. where rather than trusting when God has told us something, we doubt it and we try and do things in our own strength. And like textbook example of this, Sarah was his half sister, yeah. But yeah, he definitely lived out of fear instead of trusting God. Yeah, definitely. I can't remember whether or not he is his half sister. You might be right there, but I had some kind of weird inclination that it was his niece. I had a weird inclination that she was his niece, not half sister, but I might be wrong on that. But either way, that whole family tree is another thing to discuss. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I think I saw a podcast of... I think I listened to a podcast, the Bema podcast, where they explained who Sarai is and why she was married to Abraham and what their relation was. But I can't remember the specific details, so there's no point in me really commenting on that part. But yeah, it's a textbook example of not trusting God and living out of fear. And like, for anybody out there who is listening to this either now or in the future who might not be a Christian, I want you to know that if being a Christian or becoming a Christian is something you're considering, the expectation is not... Well, the reality is that you're probably never going to completely trust in God in every single scenario in your life. The expectation is that you are to try to do that, and do that to the best of your ability. But I think we all struggle with it as Christians, right? There are matters that happen in our lives that maybe just we're really fearful of, and sometimes we make the mistake of stepping away from or pushing aside the promises of God and trying to do it on our own. And a textbook example of that in my life is this right now, what I'm doing right here. I put this off for months because I was terrified that I was going to get things wrong. And there have been multiple times when Abby, my wife, has said to me, like, it's not in your own strength, it's not about you, it's not about what you can do or what you can plan, it's about what God wants to do through you. And like, ultimately, if he wants something to happen, it's going to happen, and I can't stand in the way of it. So just get on with it, basically. And that's why I've kind of started doing this. You know, it's chill, it's relaxed. Hopefully, anyway. Hopefully you guys feel relaxed. And yeah, I was putting it off and saying, like, I need a plan, I need to do it a specific way. But here I am, and I'm just getting on with it. And the best that we can do is to just do what God has asked us to do, I think. Anyway, enough about that. Going to move on to the next bit. Just going to take a sip of my water first. Okay. So, chapter 13. Abram and Lot separate. So Abram left Egypt and travelled north into the Negev, along with his wife and Lot, and all that they owned. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, they continued travelling by stages toward Bethel, and they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. This was the same place Abram had built the altar and where he worshipped the Lord again. And there he worshipped the Lord again. Lot, who was travelling with Abram, had also become very wealthy with flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds living so close together. So disputes broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot. At that time, Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land. Finally, Abram said to Lot, Let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we are close relatives. The whole countryside is open to you. Take your choice of any section of the land you want, and we will separate. If you want the land to the left, then I'll take the land on the right, and if you prefer the land on the right, then I'll go to the left. Lot took a very long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord or the beautiful land of Egypt. This was before the Lord had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose for himself the whole Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants and parted company with his uncle Abram. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom and settled among the cities of the plain. But the people of this area were extremely wicked and constantly sinned against the Lord. To try is all God asks of us. He helps us every step of the way. Absolutely, Jason. And I think that's the important thing, isn't it? Is to keep going back to God and you know, if we have fears, if we have doubts, to rather than let them control us, is to take those back to God and ask Him to help us deal with them, to help us come to terms with those fears and not let them stand in the way of what He's asked us to do. So, yeah, good though. So, we've got like I suppose, a kind of like a little bit of a political power squabble going on in this chapter here, where, you know, Abraham and Lot have both got lots of power and wealth and possessions, and obviously it's too much to sustain the land. So Abraham actually is the one who says to Lot, let's go, let's part ways, because we shouldn't fight and we shouldn't. What does he say specifically? Let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we're close relatives. I think that's, you know, a great way to approach a situation. Like, he comes at it with grace and truth in a way, because he's saying, like, he's not putting blame on Lot or saying, oh, if it wasn't for you, for all of your herds, then we wouldn't be having this problem. He doesn't say that. He just says, right, okay, both of us have got a lot of stuff here, and it's unsustainable for both of us to live on the land. So you pick where you want to go, and I'll go, you know, to the other one, to the other place that you don't go. And I think it's also very telling of Abraham's personality and generosity, I suppose, that he gives Lot the first choice. Like, he doesn't just say, oh, I'm going to take this bit, Lot, you take that bit. Actually, he leaves the choice to Lot. It's very selfless. So after Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, look as far as you can see in every direction, north, south, east, and west. I am giving you all of this land, as far as you can see, to you and your descendants as a permanent possession. And I will give you so many descendants that, like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted. Go and walk through the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you. So Abram moved his camp to Hebron and settled near the oak grove belonging to Mamre, or Mamre, I don't know how to pronounce that, but there he built another altar to the Lord. Okay, chapter 14. About this time, war broke out in the region. King Amraphel, I'm guessing that's how you say it, of Babylonia, King Arioch of Elessa, King Kedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidal of Goim fought against King Bera of Sodom, King Bersha of Gomorrah, King Sinab of Admah, King Shemeba of Zeboim, and King of Bela. Apologies for all those terrible pronunciations. 1 year later, Kedorlaomer and his allies arrived and defeated the Rephites and at Ashtaroth Kanaim, the Zuzites at Ham, and the Emites at Shava Kiriathaim, and the Heriites at Mount Seir, as far as El Paran, at the edge of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, now called Kadesh, and conquered all the territory of the Amalekites and also the Amorites living in Zazon Tamar. There's a lot of interesting names in here. Sheesh. Then the rebel kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeeboim, and Bela, also called Zoar, prepared for battle in the valley of the Dead Sea. They fought against King Kedorlaomer of Elam, King Tidal of Goyim, King Amraphel of Babylonia, and King Arioch of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. As it happened, the valley of the Dead Sea was filled with tar pits. And as the army of the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into the tar pits, while the rest escaped into the mountains. The victorious invaders then plundered Sodom and Gomorrah and headed for home, taking with them all the spoils of war and the food supplies. They also captured Lot, Abram's nephew who lived in Sodom, and carried off everything he owned. But one of Lot's men escaped and reported everything to Abram the Hebrew, who was living near the oak grove belonging to Mamre the Amorite. Mamre and his relatives, Eshcol and Aner, were Abram's allies. Do you think that when Lot decided to move close to Sodom and Gomorrah, he was trusting the initial comforts that he saw moving close to a city rather than trusting God because he had to be rescued? I'm not sure. Maybe. I think that's difficult to read into the text for me. I can kind of see how you would come to that conclusion. Yeah, Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden. So Lot chose for himself the whole valley of Jordan to the east of them. The whole Jordan Valley to the east of them. Yeah, I mean, it does say that he's choosing it because it looks like a fair land, which, you know, is fair enough. It doesn't explicitly say that it's because he didn't trust in God. I think, you know, we get very obvious moments later on in the story where it's clear that he's not making the right decisions. But this one kind of feels a little bit more, I don't know, like, is he making the right decision or the wrong decision? Yeah, not sure. I think it's the wrong decision in hindsight. You know, with the benefit of hindsight and knowing what comes later on in the story, I think it's a bad decision. But I mean, I have to be honest, right? If I was Lot and I was in that situation and I saw a really prosperous plain and I had the opportunity to go there and I had all these farm animals, I probably would have just been like, yep, sure, I'll go there. I think the thing that stands out to me is that God gave Abram favor, even though on a worldly standpoint, Lot got the first pick. Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason that Abram is able to just say to Lot, like, hey, you know what, take whatever land, take the pick of whatever land you want, is because Abram's got complete trust that God's going to provide for him. You know, I think he's living from a place of, I know that I have a God that's going to provide for me, and so he's not scared to give away the things that are seen as valuable to the world because he knows that he's got something more valuable than that. At least that's what I read into the text. I probably wouldn't have come to that conclusion were it not for your message, though, so yeah. Right, I'm going to continue on, but feel free to carry on the discussion in the chat, guys. So, chapter 14, verse 14. When Abram heard that his nephew Lot had been captured, he mobilized the 318 trained men who had been born into his household. Then he pursued Kedorlaomer's army until he caught up with them at Dan. There he divided his men and attacked during the night. Kedorlaomer's army fled, but Abram chased them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. By the way, if someone's watching this back and my pronunciations are making you cringe, sorry, but deal with it, I guess. But also sorry. Policeman chasing someone down. Anyway, not sure if you heard that, so yeah. Anyway, Abram recovered all the goods that had been taken, and he brought back his nephew Lot with his possessions and all the women and other captives. Melchizedek blesses Abram. After Abram returned from his victory over Kedorlaomer and all his allies, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem and a high priest of God Most High, or El Elyon, I don't know how you say that, but, brought Abram some bread and wine. Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has defeated your enemies for you. Then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods that he had recovered. So interestingly there, I wonder if this is like the beginning of the origins of the tithe, right? The tithing structure that the Pharisees kind of adopted later on. I know that there's it was before the Pharisees, of course, that the tithe came into being, but it's interesting to me that right there you've got a mention of the tenth. For anyone who's watching who's maybe not Christian or whatever, and you don't know what a tithe is basically where you commit a certain percentage of your income. So a lot of people say that the biblical basis of a tithe is about 10% of whatever your income is. I think it can be more than that. If you are so blessed as to be able to give more, I think it can be more than that. I think 10 is just the kind of advised amount. But yeah, it's a sum of money or sum of possessions that you might give to the church or to a godly establishment, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a church. You could tithe to a Christian organization. I work for British Youth for Christ, and so we get quite a lot of people who tithe for us, which is just fantastic. It's really generous. But yeah, that's what a tithe is for those of you who don't know. It's a commitment to give a certain percentage of money or possessions. So, then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods that he had recovered. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give back my people who were captured, but you may keep for yourself all the goods that you have recovered." Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I solemnly swear to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a single thread or sandal thong from what belongs to you. Otherwise you might say, I am the one who made Abram rich. I will accept only what my young warriors have already eaten, and I request that you give a fair share of the goods to my allies, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre." Okay. That's a really interesting section there, from verse 22 to 24, where basically you've got Abraham responding to the king of Sodom there, saying, I'm not going to take all of the possessions that we got. You can have them back, because when it comes to me being blessed and my people being blessed, I don't want people to be able to come to me and say that I got that from Sodom, because I didn't. I got it from God. And I think that's really, really interesting. It's like it's an open rejection of kind of worldly values that are placed on like possession and land and stuff. Whereas a lot of people would probably say, "Oh, I've got this free thing. Who's gonna care if I keep it? I've earned it because I'm the one who went and saved this group of people," or whatever, right? Yeah, it's like a kind of compensation piece. Yeah. Anyway. So, sorry. drinking some more water. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, "Do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great." But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? Since you have given me no children, Eliezer of Damascus, a servant in my household, will inherit all of my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir." Then the Lord said to him, "No, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir." Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, "Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have." And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Then the Lord told him, "I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession." But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it?" The Lord told him, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, and 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." So Abram presented all these to him and killed them, and he cut each animal down the middle and laid the halves side by side. He did not, however, cut the birds in half. Some vultures swooped down to eat the carcasses, but Abram chased them away. As the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a terrifying darkness came down over him. Then the Lord said to Abram, "You can be sure that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land, where they will be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them, and in the end they will come away with great wealth. As for you, you will die in peace and be buried at a ripe old age. After 4 generations, your descendants will return here to this land, for the sins of the Amorites do not yet warrant their destruction." After the sun went down and darkness fell, Abram saw a smoking firepot and a flaming torch pass between the halves of the carcasses. So the Lord made a covenant with Abram that day and said, "I have given this land to your descendants, all the way from the border of Egypt to the great Euphrates River. The land now occupied by the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. So, that is a big chapter. Big chapter right there. So we've got the Lord's covenant promise to Abraham there, and that's a huge one, right? I mean, like, we reference it all the time, and for good reason, because it's an amazing promise that we are now that we are seeing. Like, you know, the promise there, the assumption is that people that God means direct descendants of Abraham. But anyone who's watching this who's a Christian will hopefully know that God is actually making reference to anyone who declares a faith in Jesus. So God is saying here that because of your faith in me, it says, sorry, I'm going to read it properly. So it says, "Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That is how many descendants you will have. And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith." So, like, there are billions and billions and billions of stars in the universe. We know that, right? Scientists have discovered it. So it's literally beyond comprehension how many stars there are in the universe. How many stars are in the sky, if you will. And we know that there are, at the moment, 7 billion people living on Earth. But we obviously also need to take into account all of the people who have lived before who might have had a faith in Jesus as well. And so the worldly expectation here, and probably to an extent the belief that Abraham had, was, oh yeah, this will be my bloodline descendants. He probably believed that that was the case too, because, you know, he was only a guy, and unless he'd had that enlightenment and that revealed to him by God, how would he have known better? But yeah, it's ridiculous. There's billions of Christians. Like, they estimate now that there's almost 3 billion Christians worldwide, something like that. That's almost half the population of the world. Like, almost. Not quite, but almost. And that's just insane. Like, that's the number of people who declare that they have a faith or that they are a Christian, whether or not they mean cultural Christian or genuine faith-filled Christian. That's another conversation for another day. But it's just yeah, it's exactly what Jason said there in the chat. God's promises will always trump our expectations, and that is so true. So yeah. Right, so chapter 16, this is where things begin to go a bit awry in the Abrahamic family tree. So chapter 16 is the birth of Ishmael. Now, Sarai, Abraham's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So Sarai said to Abraham, "The Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant," which is so, like, in a modern context, this makes no sense, right? If you look at it through a modern lens, you would read this and you'd be like, are you insane, woman? Like, why are you... What? This makes no sense. So the reason why here is because she's the head of because Sarai is the head of the household, Hagar comes below her and is culturally considered part of Sarai in a way, part of her bloodline, her lineage kind of thing. It's a bit weird, but that's how I understand it. And so in her mind, she's kind of reasoned it. And this is another textbook example of how it's another textbook example of what we saw earlier on in Genesis, where with Cain and Abel, right? God says to Cain, where does he say it? "If you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master." And this is another textbook example right here with Sarai, where she is not trusting in the Lord's promise, right? Literally the chapter before, God has promised Abraham that he will have an heir, right? And we should assume that when God says that, he means a legitimate heir, not a bastard heir, but a legitimate heir. You know, someone who is birthed from his marriage to Sarai. But Sarai can't see a way of this happening because she's been barren for years. She just doesn't understand how it's going to be possible. So she reasons in her mind. She goes, oh, well, maybe God meant this. Maybe he meant it this way. When actually she should have just said, no, this is going to happen. But we do this all the time. When things get difficult, when things get tough, when we can't see a way of something happening, we decide to take matters into our own hands and try and do it ourselves. And that's exactly what Sarai is doing here. So Sarai said to Abraham, "The Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her." And Abraham agreed with Sarai's proposal. So Sarai Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who's wrong, you or me." Abram replied, "Look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit." Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. So, this is just, like, you can imagine this on an episode of EastEnders, can't you? Like, genuinely. It's that kind of drama. Like, from Abraham's perspective, I mean, firstly, he should have refused to sleep with Hagar, right? He should have just been like, no. Like, so I want to be clear here, right? It's not just Sarai's trust in God that's the problem. It's both of their trust in God, right? Because we've seen multiple times throughout the last couple of chapters that neither one of them really, truthfully, completely trusts God to do things the way that he's promised to do them. So God promises that he's with Abraham and that he's going to protect him and that there's going to be descendants through him. What does he do when he goes into Egypt? He hands Sarai over and says, now she's my sister. And then here, when Sarai gives him the opportunity to have sex with her servant, he's like, oh yeah, of course, that must be what God said. Like, rather than being like, no, actually, that's not what God promised. He is just, he just lets sin walk in through the door. Like, it's not even that sin is crouching at his door at this point. He's just basically flung the door wide open and said, come on in. And that's the problem that we've got going on here. And sin leads to sin. That's just how it works. One little sin can make way for a bigger sin to happen later on down the line. And that is shown here when Sarai begins to treat Hagar with contempt, and Abraham just kind of says, yeah, okay, fine, she's your servant, do what you want with her. And then that even leads to Hagar having to run away. Now, the important thing here is to say that God is obviously a God who keeps his promises. And I think because of what Sarai and Abraham did to Hagar, the promise of Abraham's descendants kind of sort of fits with Hagar as well. And we see that the Lord provides for Hagar and for Ishmael in this following passage. The angel said to her, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from and where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress Sarai, she replied. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. Then he added, I will give you more descendants than you can count. And the angel also said, you are now pregnant and you will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears, for the Lord has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. Thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord who had spoken to her. She said, you are the God who sees me. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think it's such a great phrase, and I love it. I love that story. Like, when we've been mistreated, when we've been used by people, when we're then tossed aside, the one person who sees us every single time is God. And if there's somebody out there, whether you're watching this in the future or whether you're watching it live right now, if you've gone through a tough time where you feel like you've been used by people in your life, whether you've been abused, whether you feel tossed aside like you have no worth or value to anyone else. It's really important, and I hope that this comes across from reading this passage, that there is a God out there who sees you just the same way that he saw Hagar in her moment of need. God sees you too. If you haven't, if you wouldn't call yourself a Christian, or you haven't made that commitment, and you're watching this and you're thinking about it, I'd want to encourage you to take that step. There are many things that you can find online about it. There's the sinner's prayer. I'm not going to do it live on stream, but I'd encourage you, if you're someone who's not Christian and you're watching this and you're thinking that this is something that you want in your life, that you want to be involved with, I'd encourage you to pray the sinner's prayer. Just go before God, talk to him about it. Excuse me. Pour out your heart before him, because he hears you, and he wants to make a difference in your life. Okay. With that said, I'm going to move on now. I'm going to read through till chapter 18 today, by the way, guys. So as soon as we hit... So we've got just over a chapter left, and then we're going to wrap up for the night. Just keeping it short to an hour-long stream tonight. Don't want to go too far. So, thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord who had spoken to her. She said, "You are the God who sees me." She also said, "Have I truly seen the one who sees me?" So that well was named Bir Lahai Roi, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abraham a son, and Abraham named him Ishmael. Abraham was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. So it's 86. Like, this man old. This man is old. And still not had a kid with Sarai, right? So that kind of puts it into perspective. When I say about Sarai and Abraham not trusting in God, I don't want it to come across as if they don't have any reason to doubt, right? They have plenty of reason to doubt in a worldly sense. You know, both of them are really old. We all know that once you pass a certain age, it's a lot more difficult to conceive a child. And so for them, it felt like a hopeless situation. But at the same time, they had a promise from literally the God of the universe saying it was going to happen. So in that sense, they probably should have known it was going to happen. But they're also human, and humans kind of, well, we suck at remembering those promises when we need to remember them most. So, yeah. So, here we go. Chapter 17, the last one of this stream. When Abraham was 99 years old, so we're talking 13 years later, the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you by which I guarantee to give you countless descendants." At this, Abraham fell face down on the ground. Then God said to him, "This is my covenant with you. I will make you the father of a multitude of generations. What's more, I am changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And I will give you the entire land of Canaan, where you now live, as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God." So again, we've got this reassurance, right? As humans, we need reassurance, constant reassurance. We see that so much in the Bible, and I find that so encouraging, because it says to me that God truly understands us. Like, he doesn't, when we ask for him to confirm things, when we when we ask him about, oh God, did you really mean it when you said this promise or this promise or this promise? God isn't like most dads, right? He's the perfect father figure. He literally has boundless patience with us as humans, right? Like, we can't comprehend the amount of patience that he has. In the sense of, we can ask him again and again and again and again about what he's promised us, and very rarely does he ever turn around to you and say, shut the heck up. Like, I've told you so many times now, like, why do you keep asking me? It's very rare that he does that. So he just constantly reminds us of that promise. And again, Jason, fantastic message there in the chat. Even though Abraham tried to do things his way, God reminded him of the promise. That's what an amazing father he is. So true. Like, it would be so easy. Like, I mean, I'm not a dad at the moment. I'm not going to be a dad for a while yet. Most likely. That sounds really weird, but I'm just rambling. Whatever. It's fine. It's part of my personality. You just got to deal with the rambles when you're on this stream, okay? I'm not a father yet, but if I was, I'm trying to think, right, of a scenario. Like, if I was Abraham's dad and he came back to me and he was like, oh yeah, God gave me this promise of like, oh, he's going to give me a whole multitude of generations. But I didn't quite trust in the promise, so I slept with my wife's servant in order to have a kid. I'd be like, what the heck? Why did you do that, you stupid idiot? Like, you shouldn't have done that. You should have trusted in God. That's what I would be like, right? That's my gut instinct in that, is to react that way. But God doesn't react like that. God says, you didn't trust in my promise, but I'm still going to fulfill that promise anyway. Like, it's such a good example of fatherhood, in my humble opinion. And I just love it. I just love it. Just reestablishes it. Just like Jason said, he just reminds Abraham of the promise that he's given him. So, now we have the mark of the covenant. Big one. Then God said to Abraham, your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant, and you and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Sorry, I'm going to have another drink of water. Each male among you must be circumcised. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of an everlasting covenant. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. So this is the beginning of circumcision. Now, those of you who don't know what circumcision is, I'm not going to tell you the details because it's a bit gross, and it also, I mean, it says it right there. I've already told you the details. So just, scroll back a minute or whatever. But yeah, it's a pretty gross practice, but it's the physical reminder, right? And what I said to you before about we need to be constantly reminded and reassured. This is God basically acknowledging the fact that we need that constant reassurance. And so he's getting us to permanently do something to our bodies as a form of remembering the promise that he has for that people group. So it's a physical reminder, one that would remain with you throughout your entire life, right? Because that part of your body, when you circumcise it, it doesn't grow back or anything like that. So it's quite literally a permanent reminder. So Sarai is now named Sarah. Then God said to Abraham, regarding Sarai, your wife, her name will no longer be Sarai. From now on, her name will be Sarah. And I will bless her and give you a son from her. Yes, I will bless her richly, and she will become the mother of many nations. Kings of nations will be among her descendants. Then Abraham bowed down to the ground, but he laughed to himself in disbelief. How could I become a father at the age of 100, he thought, and how can Sarah have a baby when she is 90 years old? So Abraham said to God, may Ishmael live under your special blessing. But God replied, no, Sarah, your wife, will give birth to a son for you. You will name him Isaac, and I will confirm my covenant with him and his descendants as an everlasting covenant. As for Ishmael, I will bless him also, just as you have asked. I will make him extremely fruitful and multiply his descendants. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be confirmed with Isaac, who will be born to you and Sarah about this time next year. When God had finished speaking, he left Abraham. So, again, doubt comes in, right? So we've got, oh, by the way, I apologize that it's quite dark in here. The sun's going down out there, so, and we don't have any lights on in here. Light's not very good in this flat, so I also just can't be bothered to turn one on. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, we've got this constant reoccurring theme, and it's a reoccurring theme not just in Genesis, but throughout the whole Bible. Not just throughout the whole Bible, but throughout the whole of human history, is this doubtfulness, this just disbelief. It's funny how we think that we can negotiate with the Lord, but he does allow us to, and it's amazing. Yeah, he does allow us to, and he shows that with the most prime example in which we are shown negotiation with God is through Moses, right? The conversations that they have on Mount Sinai in Exodus just go the extra mile in proving the fact that it's not just completely a dictatorship, but God actually allows us to have a little bit of a say as well, and he listens to us, which is just awesome. It's just really cool. Anyway, so on that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including those born there and those he had bought. Then he circumcised them, cutting off their foreskins, just as God had told him to. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and Ishmael, his son, was 13. Both Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised on that same day, along with all other men and boys of the household. Along with all the other men and boys in the household, whether they were born there or bought as servants, all were circumcised with him. So there you go. That is the establishment there of the covenant of circumcision. So it's just this whole section, really. These whole, 6 chapters that we've read today? Yes. The last 6 chapters have just been a constant reminder, God constantly reminding Abraham of the promises that he has for him. And I think that's such a reassuring message, right? And it's reassuring for me, the reestablishing of promises. And I think it's key for me in this moment, or this day particular. I've had a couple of weeks where I've not done this, where I've not live streamed and read God's word. But this feels so relevant, like, because those doubts that I had started to creep back in about, oh, is this something that you want me to do, God? Is this actually helping people? Are people enjoying it? Are people finding this discussion, this space to read your word? Is it going to be fruitful? And for me personally, I've felt this last hour has kind of just reinforced for me that this is God's promise. You know, like he reestablishes it again and again and again. And maybe one day I will get the picture, right? That God is for me and that he's got a plan for me and there's purpose and all that stuff. But I think in my own stubborn nature and my own stubbornness, that message takes a while to sink in. And so, yeah, I think those of you that are watching, just know that God is for you. He's not against you. And if God has given you a promise, hold on to that promise, because he makes good on those promises. He's not like, you know, he's not a bank official or a politician or, you know, someone that we might compare him to in the world. He's God, and what he says happens, and he makes good on his promises. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this 1 hour Bible study session. I certainly have. I found it really, really encouraging. Thank you, Reese and Jason, for talking in the chat and, you know, engaging with me. Really appreciate it. I love you guys. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Probably same time next week. I actually don't know if I'm here. I think I am. But yeah, I might be here again next week. And I hopefully you guys will be as well. So thanks very much, and I shall catch you guys later.